Good afternoon. I'm John Falchicchio, Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development, and on behalf of Mayor Bowser, we want to welcome you to the Recovery Weekly Check-In, a series that we do every Tuesday at 4 p.m. in order to update you about what DMPED and the district government is doing to focus on the recovery efforts for our businesses and for our residents. So today we want to talk about the Bridge Fund. We announced the Bridge Fund just a few weeks ago. It is a $100 million initiative that Mayor Bowser put together based on legislation passed by the Council of the District of Columbia. And we want to thank our partners on the Council for helping us as we begin the rollout of the program. Today we're going to focus on the restaurant industry and the grant application that we opened just yesterday as part of the Bridge Fund. This grant application and this grant program will disperse $35 million of district funding to our restaurants and food establishments. So we're excited to have a conversation about that today. In addition to that, we wanted to highlight something else that we think our viewers will be interested in. We yesterday announced that the Department of Employment Services will disperse a one-time stimulus payment to our PUA recipients. So that's the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program recipients. Those are folks who are wouldn't have been eligible for unemployment before the pandemic, but federal legislation allowed for what we like to call, for shorthand, gig workers to be eligible for unemployment. And so that benefit is running out at the end of the year. So what Mayor Bowser and the Department of Employment Services, under the direction of Dr. Unique Morris-Hughes, wanted to do was have a one-time stimulus payment using CARES Act dollars in order to give support to our gig workers. So district residents who have been receiving pandemic unemployment assistance or who applied before November 30th are eligible for this $1,200 payment. And the way that you could check to see if you are eligible is to check on the DOES unemployment portal, and you'll see in your profile if you're a PUA worker and if you qualify for this payment. So we're excited to work with the Department of Employment Services on this initiative. So I want to get us right to our topic in hand today, which is our support of the restaurant industries. I have two of my colleagues in government, Sabangale Cook, who is the director of the Business Development Unit at DMPED, and Sean Townsend, who is the director of the Mayor's Office of Nightlife and Culture. Some actually call him the Night Mayor. And so with that, I want to turn to Sabangale Cook to talk to us a little bit about her work in DMPED and on this Bridge initiative. So with that, Sabangale, you're up.
All right. Thank you so much, Deputy Mayor. Once again, always an honor and a pleasure to be here with everyone today, and to echo a little bit of what the Deputy Mayor just mentioned, that we're talking about the Restaurant Bridge Fund today. And so let's jump right into that then, shall we? So it's a $35 million grant fund. This is obviously to provide financial relief for restaurant and food service establishments. But let's talk about who are the eligible applicants. Those applicants that are eligible are your full-service restaurants, limited service restaurants, fast food, food service providers, bars and taverns, wineries, breweries, distilleries, bakeries, cafes, vending trucks, food courts as well, and even cafeterias are included in this particular Restaurant Bridge Fund. Eligible uses of these expenses primarily are for general operating expenses, rent, mortgage, if you are a food truck, docking expenses, payroll, insurance, mobile vendors, utilities, and such, and even a winterization due to COVID preparation. So that's also a component of this. The award, the floor is $10,000. The cap, the max, is $50,000. As the Deputy Mayor mentioned, it opened yesterday at 11 a.m. It will close. The deadline is December 28th at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Given that we know folks are focused on the holidays, obviously generating revenue during this time as well. There are a lot of other important things that people are focused on. So this is open for a lot longer period of time. If we go to the next slide, I'll talk a little bit more about the eligibility requirements. You do have to have a physical location at least have one employee, employed, one district resident employed. That could include the owner. Must be open and operating as we speak. Must have generated revenue prior to October 1st. There's also information in here that is expounded upon when you look at the guide. If a business was open after the public health emergency between March and September, those businesses are also eligible. You must have an active DC basic business license and any other applicable licenses through ABRA. If you have those, you will be required to submit those as well. The cap in terms of annual revenue, if you have generated $10 million or less in 2019, you are eligible. If you generated $7.5 million in 2020, you are eligible. Franchises are independently owned and operated. They are eligible. You also must demonstrate financial distress. This is something that I'm sure businesses have seen in our most recent funds that we have rolled out in the last 7 or 8 months. That still does apply. The financial distress is 25% decrease in revenue due to COVID. Must be LBE eligible. Obviously, you also have to have a clean hands through OTR within 90 days of you applying. Next, also the other element and key component to the Restaurant Bridge Fund is that we created a set-aside. The set-aside is for businesses that are resident-owned, that are also eligible to be a resident-owned business, also an eligible SBE. And then one of the other following must be is a majority-owned business that's economically disadvantaged, majority-owned by a woman or women, a certified disadvantaged business enterprise. So one of those three as well. And this is a set-aside of $5.25 million specifically for those type of businesses. So that's also carved out in this restaurant fund. How to get ready. You must have your tax returns, your 2018 letter or your 2019 return, and all schedules, your 2019, 2020 is also listed in here, your basic business license, your and applicable ABRA licenses, clean hands, I think I just said that as well, your certificate of occupancy, proof of identification, driver's license, ID, passport, and your payroll roster is included in this as well. I would like to also share something that has been a little different that we're adding new as we continue to learn and try to improve as we are rolling out these different funds, is that we're also hosting some information sessions this week. So starting tomorrow, December 9th, there will be an information session at 3 o'clock. There's also one on December 10th on Thursday at 1, and there'll be another on December 11th at 11 a.m. These will all be recorded, and we will post them on the COVID site. So in the event that you're not able to make it, you will be able to tap into those and view those at your leisure as you are looking at preparing to apply. So we definitely invite you to join us. When you go on to the corona.dc.gov website /bridge fund, you'll see a link that allows you to register and just sign up. And all you do is you're putting in your information, and it'll send you out some details to log into that WebEx call. So those will begin tomorrow. Also on the website, for additional assistance, there is a series of FAQs that have been posted. There's also an application guidance checklist, if you will, that you can find on the Bridge Fund. And obviously, if you have any questions at all, email us at restaurantbridgefund@dc.gov. That is the email address that you will find us at. Again, the application closes on December 28th at 5 p.m. That's what I have for you, Deputy Mayor. Back to you, sir.
Great. Sabangwe, thanks for reminding folks when the deadline is. Also important that folks really try to get the application in as soon as possible. Just in case you have any issues, any questions, you can reach out to the team. Sabangwe will make sure they're responsive in the next few weeks, as they always are. So Sabangwe, thanks for your work on this. And so I guess keeping with the old rhyme that 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready, and 4 to go. So Sean Townsend, you're up next. Sabangwe covered the money. now for the show. Tell us about the work that you've been doing with our sister agencies to get restaurants prepared for the pivots ahead. So thank you, Director Townsend.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I will be brief with updates from the Mayor's Office of Nightlife and Culture. I'm happy to announce that as of December 2nd, 2020, we have now issued 586 streetery winter-ready grants to businesses to help winterize their outdoor areas, outdoor spaces. Today it's cold, so I could imagine that as I drove up here, I can see some folks bundled up and using heaters as they sat outside and ate and drank. So good to see those funds being put to use. Also, we have been busy distributing PPE to those businesses that were awarded grant funds. So we were happy to not only distribute PPE to those businesses, but also just to check in and see how business is going and to see some of the creative ways that businesses have expanded their operations to the outdoor spaces. Additionally, we will be, we did a webinar last week with our sister agencies to discuss the Phase 2 restrictions and Phase 2 updates. So that was done in English last week, and this week we'll be doing it in Spanish. So if you are if you know of a Hispanic operating business in the district that has expanded or interested in expanding their operations to outside, or interested in hearing the updates to Phase 2, as I'm sure many of you are aware, on December 14th, the capacity for restaurants, it decreases to 25%. So there's some important information that we just want to continue to share with the business community, including Hispanic businesses. So that information will be translated into Spanish on Thursday, December 10th at 4 p.m. And this is an important one. Workers who continue to be on the front line and provide these meals that I continue to have, whether it's takeout, delivery, or dine in or dine out, so to speak. I want to remind everyone that testing is available for our restaurant workers. So whether you have insurance or not, there's a schedule posted on the coronavirus.dc.gov site weekly with locations and addresses and times of availability for testing. So I encourage all of us to continue to get tested as it is important for us to contain and manage the spread of the coronavirus. And last but not least, it has come to my attention that there have been an increase in car thefts, mostly downtown, but throughout the district, related to carry out and delivery of food. And that is for our third-party Uber Eats drivers, DoorDash, our third-party delivery companies, as well as customers picking up their food. And in most of those cases, the car was left on or the keys was left in the ignition. So I want to remind everyone, if you're picking up food, whether you're working for a third-party delivery company or you're picking up food for your husband or wife or girlfriend or boyfriend at home, take your keys and secure your items, lock the doors. Even if you're going to run in for a quick second to pick up a meal, it's important that you secure your vehicle so that you can have a vehicle to come outside to. And that's all I have, Deputy Mayor. I just wanted to shout out the DMPED team, Simbangale, and the rest of the staff. I was able to join a 5-hour meeting session recently to talk through some of the grant stuff. So I know that there's a lot of work that's being put in to help build the structure of some of these grants. So I tip my hat off to the team DMPED.
Well, thanks so much, Sean, for those helpful reminders, and definitely share your appreciation of Sabangwe and the team for the work that they're doing. There's a lot of folks watching different ways today. So there are some folks who are watching on Channel 16. We also have this streaming on @Mayor Bowser on Facebook and Twitter. You can join the conversation by using hashtag DCHope. Or to put it into the Facebook live stream to ask any questions, share any suggestions. Also, if you're listening on our phone line, you can press 0 now. What that will allow us to do is have an operator see you and be able to bring you into the conversation. So we want you to join the conversation, and we want to hear your feedback, questions, and suggestions. Next up is Kathy Hollinger. She's the Executive Director, the CEO, President, all those things, of the Restaurant Association of Washington, Metropolitan Washington, excuse me. And she's been a great partner with us to get out the word about the programs and initiatives that we've had throughout the pandemic. And as we focus on the recovery, I know she's going to be a partner again. She has with us one of her members and board members, actually. So we're excited to have them both here today. And I'll turn it over to Kathy. But before I do, for folks who are listening on the phone line, press 0 now to join the conversation. If you're on social media, use hashtag DCHope so we can track down your questions or comments. With that, I'll bring in Kathy to the conversation.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Let me just start by saying we're so appreciative as an organization to work with the Deputy Mayor and Director Townsend, who truly appreciate the contributions that this industry makes in terms of employment, revenue generation, and really culture creation for this city. I talk about it often, but we are a city that is comprised of 96% independently owned and operated restaurants, which makes it that much more important that we work together and that we find paths forward through this really trying time. So we organizationally, we have always served as an advocate, a resource, and a community for the restaurant industry. And over the last 8 months, we have been super focused on trying to reimagine how we can be all those things to our people during crisis. So we are in touch regularly, some may say too much, with our operators to make sure that they have real-time guidance, they have updated information, what they are allowed to do, what they are not allowed to do, sometimes hour by hour, right? In the early months, it changed very regularly, but we have really found a way to keep our community close and give them the best information, which is why we are so appreciative that we have the partnership with the city to be able to get that information out in a very timely manner. The Bridge Fund is going to provide very impactful resources to many operators during what is probably the hardest time any operator has faced since this pandemic started. We know that winter is going to be tough, and these are the months that they're going to need that support more than ever. I don't have too much time here, so I am going to go right into not where we've been, but where we are currently. Next slide. So currently, 40% of our operations are actually 40% of employees are retained within operations. So that is less than half of the employee base as of March 1. The restaurants are experiencing a little bit more than 55% loss in revenues, so a little bit more than half of where they were this time last year. 80% of them are currently open for indoor dining. As the winter months set in, or winter days, I should not say months because we are already close to winter, but as it gets colder, that number will obviously diminish. The number one issue that operators are stating is that they are finding a really difficult time building consumer confidence for diners to come in, for diners to order food, for diners to support the local industry, which is a role that we are looking to play more and more and find partners to do that. And of course, going into the winter months, they are feeling very nervous, But they are also making decisions where half of our operators in DC are choosing to modify their services, hibernate if they need to, and plan accordingly to get through the winter months. Next slide. To date, 100 restaurants have closed in DC since March of 2020. In 2019, 47 restaurants closed in the same time period, so that is an increase of 112%. It is pretty likely, based on estimates that we made in April, May, we're still at the 25% of restaurants will likely close permanently here in the district, but also we're seeing that across the region. We have worked nonstop with members of the council, nonstop with the executive, Deputy Mayor Falchicchio, Director Townsend, and all agencies who have really been there willing and able to think through some of the ideas that we may have in terms of resources and support, but also help us think through not only reopen, rebuild, recover, and reset for the industry. Next slide. So as we look forward to graduated phases of reopening, resetting, recovering, we're going to look and need to do a lot more of what has been done over the last 8 months. And this is not just with government. This is with private sectors, with partners who can help us in various ways, knowing that recovery is going to be very, very long. We are asking local jurisdictions to partner with us on building consumer confidence, creating the right marketing programs that get people out and get people out at various phases of reopening. Next slide. And then, of course, as we move forward and out of COVID emergency state, and we are less constrained in terms of capacity limitations and social distancing, we know that it's not just about reopen, but it is really about reset. So we are talking as an operator community around what reset would look like. And really, how do we do away with anything that was considered a challenged or poor practice and think about how we can glean going forward? REMW, as an organization, we've been taking many intentional steps to really help our operators rethink their business models, to rethink their workforce, to rethink their spaces and create tools that help their employees, that help their managers, help their ownership. We also feel very strongly that as we reset, we have to be really deliberate and intentional around making sure that everyone is able to reset along with one another in a very inclusive way. So as we think about resources, are we also thinking about the same kind of resources for our Black and minority-owned operators who may feel that they are more marginalized during this pandemic? Next slide. Marketing. So as we do so much organizationally to market the industry, you can imagine we've had to reimagine every kind of marketing program that drives diners to restaurants and drives butts in seats. We executed various campaigns since March, rooted in gratitude, where operators wanted to thank diners for support. It was also rooted in safety protocols and COVID safety protocols to show the community that operators are ready, they are safe, they are operating under the highest of standards. And we also partnered with the city on the Mask Up DC campaign, where operators were showing that they were careful, had their masks, but asking the same of diners to show a shared responsibility as they were dining in those establishments. As we go into the holidays, it will be much more challenging. We know that people have probably been cooking far more than they ever thought they would over the last 9 months. This is the time to really dine out in home. And we are focusing on a holiday at home campaign where people can support their local businesses, pick up, get food delivered, and get through the holiday season in a safe way by supporting restaurants. Next slide. I will just close with this before I get to introduce one of my favorite people, Tiffany. You know, we as an industry are incredibly resilient. We have seen some really creative, innovative concepts that have come out of this time of adversity. Tiffany is one of those amazing operators who have done that. But I will say that, you know, I do think we're going to rebuild and be bolder and better and stronger from this. But the next couple of months are going to be really challenging. So thank you again, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Director Townsend. You guys have been relentless in your support, and we're going to need it going forward. Tiffany McIsaac is who I am now introducing, who is the owner of Buttercream Bakery. She has done some pretty ingenious things in the last couple months and is busy doing it, which I'm delighted by. So I am now passing it off to Tiffany.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Yep, my name is Tiffany McIsaac. I'm the pastry chef and co-owner of Buttercream Bake Shop. People often say, what's your bakery like? And at this point, I have to say which version, the one before March or the one now. So I'll tell you both. The one before March was a full-service bakery in the heart of D.C., which is Shaw. We're a bakery that specializes in sparkles and sprinkles, but with an emphasis on cakes and celebration cakes. You know, we're just there to make people happy. That's kind of what we loved doing. I will say it's a bit different now. Once COVID hit, we felt that the shop just didn't have enough space to operate at full capacity and keep everybody socially distanced and, you know, feeling healthy. So we went ahead and closed the shop, took a couple of weeks off to kind of reset. You know, to be perfectly honest, I really thought, I think I told the staff, keep your keys, I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Here we are almost 9 months later. So boy, I hate to be wrong, but I really hate to be wrong this time. So what we did was we closed for a couple of weeks, regrouped, opened it first with a brief menu that people could use to order small cakes that were kind of on special every week. We would also have an assortment of pastries that people could pre-order. And that was just a way for us to, you know, stay in touch with all of our regulars and people we were finding still had a reason to celebrate. You know, birthdays were still happening, anniversaries were still happening, and we really still wanted to be there for those moments. After we kind of got used to that new format, we progressed into doing custom cakes by appointment for pickup. But then the biggest pivot that we did, which is what I kind of say the new Buttercream is now I joke that we're a shipping and packing facility. We decided to really try and monetize and capitalize on our social media presence, which is really wonderful. We have a very engaged audience all across the United States. So we decided to shift to a national shipping model. You know, it's definitely been an uphill battle. We only had a few short months to get it together, but we're shipping gourmet baking kits that we just launched maybe about a month and a half ago. It's been going fabulously. You know, I almost didn't make it here on time today trying to get all of the orders out. And, you know, that's not a complaint. It's just a fact. I am so grateful and so happy to have business and to be able to pay the rent and pay the few employees that we still have. So, you know, not a complaint. I'm thrilled to be doing it. That said, I will say that I'm really thankful for the grants that are coming up and looking forward to them because, you know, everybody looks at a restaurant and they say, wow, this restaurant's so busy. How do they not have the money to make it through this? You know, how do they not have kind of cushion funds? And of course, not every restaurant, but most restaurants, even the busiest restaurants, in the best case scenario, they have razor thin margins. And in the worst case scenario, they operate in the negative. So something like this coming along is really devastating to our industry as a whole. And, you know, like so many other industries, we're not the only one. But I think the goal for most owners right now is just to be alive and be available for people to come back to work when this is over. Because at the end of the day, if there's no restaurants to go back to, we're going to have people on unemployment for a very long time. So, you know, these grants will help us get through that. It's also just like a huge mental boost to know that there are people looking out for us and helping us get to that light at the end of the tunnel. So, you know, I can only speak for myself, but I'm very grateful. And yeah, I'm just thrilled to still have a business that's operating and be able to employ people. So.
Thank you, Tiffany. Thanks for that. And, you know, you highlighted something that I think is really important in terms of that when people walk in, they see customers and they think automatically that this business must be flourishing. And I think for us, it goes back to the reason why the mayor started the Bridge Fund. She actually started the Bridge Fund to help the folks who employ DC residents. If you don't know, we started 2020 with about 800,000 jobs in the District of Columbia. We've lost more than 56,000 of those jobs, and more than 30,000 of those were in the hospitality industry. We're in the hospitality industry, and so really our focus on the Bridge Fund is to make sure that we help the employers who are helping employees of their businesses and who are residents of the District of Columbia so that they can flourish themselves. We know how stressful of a time this is, and so to think about how businesses can market and brand themselves and reach new customers, we have Kim of Curate. Curate is a strategic marketing firm focused on marketing, merchandising, and operations on the food and beverage industry. She's consulted over 250 small businesses on growth strategy, building out diversified revenue streams, and identifying new market opportunities. So I want to bring Kim into the conversation because she is a master of the pivot. So Kim, we'll bring you in.
Thank you so much, Deputy Mayor. Hi, everyone. I'm Kim Brydon. I'm the CEO of Curate, and we exist to shift the dollar back into our local communities by building an empowered supply to meet this changing consumer demand. So how does this happen? One, we have Curate courses. We often say you may make jam but not know how to run a jam business. You come to us. It's our food entrepreneurship education curriculum. The second is Curate Connect. We embed as the local purchasing team at large businesses and organizations, think hospitals, convention centers, acting as the prime supplier for them to then buy from a variety of local businesses like yourselves, perhaps. And the last is Curate Consult, where we work with city governments and business owners to help them pivot and innovate and think through this reimagined retail experience. I like to say that we think of tidbits of knowledge to share with people. We have a newsletter and a podcast called The Tidbit, so you can sign up and follow along there if you're interested in more tidbits of knowledge in your inbox. But 3 tidbits I've gleaned over this past year I wanted to share with you today. So the first is that I want to acknowledge that we are in this collective time of grieving. We've all lost something this year, and having compassion for others, but even more so compassion for yourself. As a business owner, your creativity, your beautiful heart, soul, and mind, it needs to be here, needs to be present, and making sure that you're taking care of yourself, especially in these darker months ahead. I know for myself, seeking out support groups or therapy is extraordinarily important in these times. The second tidbit I wanted to share is that I finished a cross-country listening tour where I was listening to food and beverage businesses that are not on the coasts, learning how they've been adapting this year. And one example I wanted to share was a restaurant in St. Louis that when you booked a reservation at their establishment, you actually reserved a parking spot, and it was a tailgate. And so when they dropped the dish at your car, it came with an index card with a QR code that when you scanned, it prompted a video on YouTube to learn the story behind each ingredient of the dish. And I loved seeing that they took that creativity and curiosity of storytelling into this new digital format. So I want you to think about, in this constraint, what creativity could emerge? And perhaps you could look at other industries for inspiration. Maybe you look at the video gaming industry and how they do community building and experience design, or the beauty industry and how they look at the unboxing experience. So really think about those ways you can imbue your core values in these new ways of reaching your customer. And the last is our bread and butter at Curate, which is diversification of your revenue streams. So through Curate courses, we just finished our last cohort in September. It's a main thing that we talk about is what are the different ways in which you can create resiliency in your business model and have different forms of revenue coming in. So if you're a service-based business, how can you create a product? Think Cava a la Cava dips that you find in a grocery store. So I'm really excited to introduce one of the Curate courses graduates, Yamrat Izine, who I think has done a beautiful job of being a restaurant owner, but also thinking through this pivot of what it means to go from restaurant to consumer packaged good. So Yamrat, I'm gonna kick it over to you to take it away.
Thank you, Kim. graduates of Curate. I'm indebted to that. Just to tell you a bit about myself, my name is Muriel, and I own the TeleTownHall restaurant in Washington, D.C. Our restaurant is a full service serving lunch and dinner mainly, vegan, vegetarian, and meat dishes. In terms of customer proportion, we have destination diners to local diners of 3-to-1 proportion. So we were greatly hit by the pandemic because we quite depended on travel and tourism. So when COVID hit, we had to proactively close early March and stayed open for about 3 months. But after a while, we kind of knew that this was going to take some time, so we decided to come back with the precautions in place and all the procedures that we need to take care of. However, we weren't comfortable in opening the dine-in because we don't have an outside seating. So we just came back as a takeout and delivery business. We also, in addition to that, we have bulk order and prepared meal services, delivery. Unfortunately, that's not where we would like it to be, so we again had to think about another means of getting revenue stream. So this is where Curate comes into play. We have to package items we considered as our hit sellers or our hits. So currently we came up with packaged infused oil, seasoned salt, and iced tea, Ethiopian style iced tea. So we have these sellers we sell them on our website as well as on third-party sites. In addition to this, I'm part of a Let's Talk DC forum. It's organized by DC chapter of the James Beard Foundation. So the objective is basically to support the women, to support each other, and help each other survive this crisis. So what we do is we meet regularly and try to come up with a strategy that can generate revenue for our businesses. And in doing so, in the past, towards the end of the summer, we organized a restaurant week for women restaurant week, and that helped in terms of creating awareness. And also, currently we're running a virtual market for the holiday. So this kind of thing helps every now and then. However, this is not enough to meet our obligations in terms of finance. So far we've been okay, mainly because of the PPP loan and grants that we received from DC. And also, above all, we have a landlord that is really willing to work with us. So this has helped so far. But looking forward, this is not sustainable. The next few years the next few months are going to be quite crucial for restaurant businesses. So grants like the Restaurant Bridge Fund is going to make a huge difference to a restaurant just like myself. So I'd like to say thank you, and that's mine. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us, and we're going to open it up to questions now and really get the conversation going. I know that we did have some sound issues earlier, so if you were listening on the phone line, we apologize for the sound issues. It is 2020, so things will happen, as we all know. But we also want to let folks know that we'll keep this video up on our Facebook page. So on the Mayor Bowser Facebook page, you can look at all the information that we shared earlier and rewatch the video that was aired. So I want to thank folks for hanging with us through that. We do have some folks who have called in on the phone line and have questions. First up is Philip in Ward 2, looking to see if we could have Philip join the call. Philip, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much. The question is about the bridge loan. I'm with the Del Sur Cafe in DuPont Circle, and we only opened for business in mid-January, so we don't have a 2019 tax return. Does that make us ineligible for the bridge loan?
I'm going to go to Saban.
Hi
to answer
there.
that. Yeah, there you go.
No, it does not make you ineligible. There's additional guidance for businesses that open prior to the public health emergency that are specific to have you in mind. So there is additional guidance and language, and we definitely encourage you to join us for our information session as we go into greater detail. But you are still an eligible business to apply.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
We had a question on Facebook from Jason. He had trouble. This is actually not related to the Bridge Fund, but to some of our rental assistants, ERAP and CHAP, and had a little bit of trouble with an appointment that seemed to have fallen through. Jason, we're going to reach directly out to you to make sure that you're connected with one of our housing counseling services and make sure that you do that we see it through to make sure that you get that appointment, and we'll follow up with you on that. Next up, we had a question from Greg. He was on the phone line, but I think we lost him. He had a question, Sabangale, about on the Bridge Fund application, it asked for employee information related to the first quarter of 2020. What information do folks need to apply to provide related to their employees?
All we need is just your roster of employees that you have. That's it. So if you're able to send that, that's what we're looking for. If you need additional assistance, we're happy to do some one-on-one and help you get that information submitted as part of your application.
And just one more time, Sabangale, what's the email address if folks have a question about the Bridge Fund?
Absolutely. It's restaurantbridgefund@dc.gov.
So all one word, restaurantbridgefund@dc.gov. Great.
Correct.
Oh, go ahead.
Could also flag two other things. I know that there may be some questions from our sole proprietors out there, and I would like to mention that sole proprietors are eligible if you have a physical presence and you are a DC resident. So you are also eligible as well. So I do want to make sure that I flag that. There is also additional guidance for those businesses that have kind of a hybrid model, that you are retail and a retail establishment, but you also have a restaurant component or vice versa. There is additional guidance for you so that to help you determine which fund you should be applying for as well. So I did want to make sure that I flagged and shared that information as well, that is additional guidance that is available through our FAQ.
And I will share that pivot that we made about sole proprietors, Sabangale, I know that was informed by some of our partners on the council who reached out. I know that with the Bridge Fund, we really do thank Councilmember Kenya McDuffie, who chairs the Committee on Business and Economic Development, for his assistance as we have thought through how to set up the Bridge Fund, and other council members too who have given us guidance along the way. We also have another live caller, Delroy, in Ward 5. Delroy, I think you have a question about rental assistance?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, Delroy, what's your question?
Yeah, my question was about the rental assistance. I have submitted my information last week, but I still haven't. I did receive an email that they did receive their paperwork, but I haven't heard back anything from them. And my landlord is, pressing me about rent, so I'm trying to see.
And Delroy, did you apply for our small housing provider program or for our affordable? Did you do that through DHCD, or do you know?
I don't remember.
It's okay. We'll make sure. Well,
I think it was the ERAP applied for.
Okay. Well, what we'll do is, so for ERAP, that is actually an application that you would get feedback from our Department of Human Services. If you applied for one of the housing stabilization grant programs, that is a grant program that was a $10 million grant program that Mayor Bowser set up through the CARES Act funding from the federal government. And for that program, we actually are closing out the application this Friday, December 11th. For those applications, we're actually going to be assessing them. Really, we're going to start this week. We're going to do that on a rolling basis. And we anticipate that we'll start with awards by the end of next week. And so if it's a housing stabilization grant program, that's the timeline for it. For ERAP, we'll have the folks from the Department of Human Services give you a little bit more information about the process for that. So if we keep Delroy on and get his contact information, we'll make sure we close the loop for you. So next up, social media question from Amber. It's a suggestion. It's about, does folks know about this? This is how about, it says Fast Pass for essential food workers at testing sites. Oh, I understand. So Sean, do you want to talk about how we've gotten the word out about testing and what it means to register ahead of time?
Yes, so that is actually, I thank you for reminding me. Probably should have mentioned that earlier, but the current Fast Pass or expedited lane pass is to register prior to arriving to a testing site. And I know it might not sound like much, but I've actually experienced a few times where I've forgotten to register prior to arriving to the site, and it's taken me longer. And I noticed that others in the line who did not register actually slow up the process of getting through the testing site and actually getting tested. So I would encourage everyone to pre-register before you arrive, and that would actually help fast track everyone to take their test.
And Director, the other thing to highlight too is regardless of whether you do provide your insurance information or not, all testing at our public testing sites is free. So we want to make sure that folks know we want you to get tested. We want you to utilize the resource that's available to you, especially if you've reached out to your doctor or medical provider and they're unable to provide a test to you. You can come to one of our testing sites. If you have insurance, we ask you to provide that. But regardless of whether you have insurance or not, testing is free. So Kathy, you've been working in the industry, and one of the things that I know that you hear a lot about are a lot of questions about how to get their employees ready and testing and what that means. Talk to us about what this free testing means to the industry.
Well, it's huge. It's a question we get every single day, and sometimes we get the same question every day. But it's because people in our industry are juggling about 1 million things a moment. So their commitment is to keep themselves as operators and their employees safe. So free testing goes a very long way. FastPass does as well. I think being able to push that out so more of the industry is aware that if people register ahead of time, it will also be a faster process. I think that's day to day. There are times when it's so easy and seamless, and then there are other days where it's a little bit more challenging. But the free testing is something that we communicate probably twice a week in our mass emails that we send out to over 1,300 food service professionals. So we will continue to do that. But I think that knowing about FastPass and being able to reinforce that with our folks will also be able to minimize some of the frustration of those days where it's a little bit longer.
And now to some of the fun stuff. Tiffany, you talked about making a pivot to actually send folks kits. I think you talked about your shop specializing in sparkles and sprinkles. Did I get that right? All right,
Yep,
Sean.
you put some sparkles and sprinkles on everything, and you got nothing but happy smiles.
Before the pandemic, Sean specialized in sparklers.
Oh, yeah?
It being the nightlife mayor. But tell us about sort of making that pivot. How did you get yourself ready for it? And how did you know what your customers would want in that way?
Right. I mean, it's something I'd actually wanted to do for a while. I kind of have been trying to find the silver lining in 2020, and even though it's super, super thin, sometimes you can find it there. And I think for me, it was having the time to be able to work on this project and kind of bring it to fruition, which I don't think I would have ever done when I was running a fully operational business. So, there's definitely items on the menu that are fan favorites. We have an item called a Cinnascone, which is a scone that's rolled up like a cinnamon roll and then glazed. So we did a kit for that because that's the number one thing that people have requested while we've been closed is calling and saying, when are you going to open? I haven't had a Cinnascone in 6 months, So we did that. We did a kit for a thing called a unicorn bar, which is a blondie with sparkles and sprinkles, and every box has a jar of edible glitter in it. I always tell the parents that are buying it, because a lot of these are like activities you can do with your children in addition to just doing alone. But I always tell the parents there's lots of extra glitter in there, so if your kid won't eat their broccoli, just sprinkle a little on there. All of a sudden you'll have a vegetable eater. And the last thing we did was we did Mexican chocolate cookies, just because a really good classic chocolate cookie with a twist, you can't go wrong with that. Oh, and then we did apple pies for Thanksgiving, because I think the number one thing people love to eat but are afraid to make is pies. So we kind of made it easy. And the other thing I did too is we actually filmed a tutorial video for each of the kits. It's 3 to 5 minutes, so people can go on to our Instagram TV and actually watch the step-by-step process of the kit being made. So they're super, I call them high success rate kits. Everybody can make them and feel fabulous.
That out and
Yeah.
see,
Oh, uh-oh.
this-
Are you going to give us have to have a clause on there? Almost
So-
high success rate.
so easy a deputy mayor can do it.
I like
but
that.
I think I was about to say that a reminder to everybody, and I don't know that the health department would agree with this, but that during the holiday season, all of your ingredients and all of your recipes are calorie-free.
Calorie-free, fat-free. Yep, totally.
But I think that's a really good suggestion about, I'm thinking of my nieces and nephews and getting them to eat their vegetables and giving them a little bit of,
Little sprinkle of edible glitter never hurt anyone,
absolutely. I'm going to send a care package up to New Jersey.
That's right. There you go.
Yamrat, tell us a little bit about some of the goods that you're selling now and how you made that pivot from being a restaurant to actually selling goods as well. Oh, and you're muted on your phone.
Yeah, the way we started was we basically sat down and took a look at what our main sellers are. And of course, we sell the end product still. We're still available, but we thought, okay, how about customers are, going into cooking at home as well. So what can we provide that they can take home and be able to cook with it and get our flavor? So one of the things we managed to find is to season our oil. And that seasoned oil gives you that flavor, which makes it a typical Ethiopian experience. So that's where we started, and we started bottling that oil, olive oil, but seasoned with Ethiopian herbs and spices. The other thing, similarly with our salts, and we use them as wraps, we use them with our stir fries. So we have recipes that they can use with those ingredients and be able to actually cook at home something similar to Ethiopian food or get the flavor of Ethiopian food. So these are the two things that we managed to pivot from.
So as you probably know, Mayor Bowser traveled to Ethiopia last year, and this is a good time.
I know.
This is a good time.
I know, yes.
This is a good time for us to. No, I was going to say it's a good time for us to come check you out and check out some of those goods that you have for sale, so that we can really get some of those tastes and flavors back from our trip.
Thank you. That would be our pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And Deputy Mayor, that that Latina is also one of our Grace Street grantees from last year. They received a grant from us.
Fantastic.
If we didn't get that grant, we would have not been here now. So.
Wow.
Very excited that you're here with us. And also, actually, with Curate, I know that Kim worked with our colleague Joy James and Stephanie for their Curate virtual pitch competition recently as well.
An accelerator program.
Yep. It was
Worked
fantastic.
with the businesses that you work with, and Yamrat's a great example of how she was doing her core business and then she switched and made a pivot, as we like to say. How do you work with them about how they can think about making that pivot and also kind of marketing it to their customers?
It's a good question, and I love the example that you just gave, Tiffany, because really understanding your core value, and I'm calling it COVID clarity. You sort of stripped away everything that was no longer serving you and refocused on that unique value proposition. So as Tiffany was recommending, also Yamrat just said, what are those main sellers that you have that maybe are your highest margin items or fan favorites that you can double down on, and think about how you can deliver that experience in an alternative channel. So again, it could be selling through a retailer, it could be partnering with another business and creating a cross-merchandised kit together. But really, again, assess what is your unique value, what differentiates you in the marketplace, and double down on how that, how you can exude those values out there, because it's a tough competitive marketplace out there. So you really got to tell your story and let it shine.
And couple more questions that we got from social media, but before we get to that, Max in Ward 2 is on the line with a question about the Bridge Fund. Max, can you hear us?
Oh, yes, this is Matt.
Okay, great. Thanks for joining us. You had a question about the Bridge Fund?
Yeah, I did, and I'm sorry, I was a little late to the call. I'm out here at a restaurant on 17th Street, and I was just, I'm going to be turning in my application here, but I was just trying to find out how the award amount is determined.
I'll look to Sabangwe to help us with that one.
Yep. So it's mainly based on your fixed costs that you have. And we are, obviously, as we think about the Bridge Fund, we're thinking about more meaningful amounts of money to kind of help and trying to award businesses based on their fixed costs that they have currently. As everyone is thinking about how they reduce their costs, this is one thing that we are definitely focused on. So your payroll, your insurance, your rent. And so as we look at that, in addition to the how long you have been here in the city and operating, and also the number of employees that you have, those are all factors that are included in the award.
Wait, another question that we received on social media from Sanford was that he owns a business that is not a bar, restaurant, retail club, or rental housing. Is there any support for him, or how does he find out that support that might be available to a business like his?
I'm sorry, what kind of business is it?
Well, he didn't quite say. He just said that it's not in the hospitality industry, I'll say for shorthand, or rental housing. So how should he look to see what assistance might be available to him?
I need more information, so I'd love if he could, if he could just email us at the Restaurant Bridge Fund email address, then we can certainly get down to the bottom of it and help him identify which fund that he is eligible for.
Okay. And he had a follow-up question about how do you prioritize non-DC owned businesses over DC owned businesses? But I think you can tell us a little bit about the local business eligibility that we look for.
Yeah, I'm sorry, he's looking for what now?
Well, his question was, how do you decide to prioritize non-DC owned businesses over DC owned businesses, which might be a misconception. Could you tell us a little bit about how we emphasize local business eligible?
Yep. We are actually emphasizing local, there is a set aside for those businesses that are resident owned, and then those businesses that are here based in DC. So there is a greater definition around how we are looking at businesses, but obviously we want to make sure that we are prioritizing those that are resident owned, those businesses that are also here as well and local here. So they are LBE. And so that is a definition that we are using for as we look at the businesses that are eligible for this. There are also some other criteria as well. So we tried to make it as broad as we could so that we could capture as many of those businesses that we know we need to be supporting. But happy to continue to have that conversation with you when you shoot us some content so we can kind of identify which fund that you should be applying for.
We always want to ask folks to check out what might be available to them by looking at coronavirus.dc.gov. And if you look at the recovery section, there's all the programs that we have for you. So it's coronavirus.dc.gov/recovery. One more question from social media. Sabangwe, this one's for you as well.
Sure.
What's the turnaround time for Bridge Fund grant application approval? And can you tell us sort of how approval works and then disbursement? Could you walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Fantastic question. So, like I had mentioned earlier, that businesses are eligible to apply now. It closes on the 28th. We do have a third-party provider who is reviewing all applications. We expect and anticipate to begin awarding businesses as early as January through February, if not sooner. But that's kind of our timeline right now. We're really trying to get through these as quickly as possible. So as applications are coming in, we will continue to review. Once they close, we'll finish all review and then begin doing conditional award notification to businesses and turn around and do disbursement as fast as we can.
Thank you, Sabangwe. So we're running to the end of our time. We're actually a little bit over, but I'm going to ask Kathy Hollinger to give us kind of her parting thought, and then we'll bring in the rest for theirs.
So I really think my if I could give any kind of insight or guidance to first our industry, of our amazing industry, just to think about the luxury of planning time we've never had. You know, it's to Tiffany's point. We've never been in a position where we have time to think about where we need to be right now, where we need to be as we get through the winter, but really as you are resetting as operations and businesses, that is silver lining. As difficult as this time is, to just think about what your January plan may look like, what your February plan may look like, and really in a more hopeful way, late spring and summer. And then I would say my parting thought to, or insight shared to the city is thank you again for being great partners. And as we think about recovery and reset, to think about opportunities where restaurants are able to recoup all of what was lost in March and April and May. So as we have these great allowances in place right now, to think about having those allowances that don't necessarily cost money, but they're allowances that allow these operators to maybe have double dining rooms because they can have indoor at that point, hopefully outdoor in an easier way, just to streamline regulations where we can really recover faster than what we hope we may need to recover.
Thank you for that, Kathy, and thank you for your partnership throughout 2020 and beyond. We know that these are stressful times, but really getting information out, you've been a great partner in that and helping us develop these programs. So I'll go to Yamrat next to tell us kind of what is in store next for her and how she's going to navigate the closeout of 2020.
Planning has been quite difficult for us, mainly because we don't, the uncertainty of the future has been holding us back. But in terms of what we have on, in our pipeline is working on our Latina grocery, which means that we're going to be trying to have more marketable products, which, like I said, we can pack in our kitchen and for customers to take home and to take away and have a longer shelf life than just take out food that for the night. The second thing we have is a meal packet. I'm working with the forum that I mentioned earlier. We're trying to come up with meal packaged meal for a weekly supply. So that's a second one that we're working on. And in the meantime, we hope with the vaccine in the future, we're hoping things will get back to normal and we'll resume our operation. Those are the three things that we're hoping for at the moment.
Great. And Kim, thank you, Yamrat. Kim, tell us about how what's your best advice to those who are planning for the weeks and months ahead, those in the restaurant and food establishment business?
Yes, so I would just encourage everyone to think about the power of collective, whether that be helping a neighbor in need with a grant application or perhaps thinking about the way in which we can group buy things together. What's the opportunity we can have in coming together even around peer-to-peer support groups? So definitely think about the neighbors in need in your own industry. And what I'll also share is if you're a large business or institution and you are considering ways in which you can help, don't just think about bad times, but even in good times, small businesses need stable cash flow. So if you're looking to shift your dollars, specifically your purchasing power, into small business, please reach out because that collective mentality of our small business community is what certainly drives us at Curate and what really makes our entire city thrive, as we can see.
Tiffany, your parting advice?
Advice. I mean, I think the best recommendation I can make is just to remember there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but in the meantime, take a bet on yourself. You know, if you have an idea you've been kind of rolling around in your head for a while and you now suddenly find yourself with a little bit of time to work on it and it kind of works for the new environment that we're living in, I say go for it. I mean, we don't know what the new normal is going to look like even once the vaccine comes out. So I think being realistic with how long we're going to be in this still and taking a bet on yourself and just, kind of doing the pivot that you've kind of got rolling around in the back of your head, I think if more people did that, they'd be a lot less scared of the future.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Sean?
And I just piggyback on what Tiffany said, bet on yourself. These are uncertain times that we're in, but also physical health and mental health is very important these days. And hear more stories about employees and workers testing positive, but also being unemployed. So I would encourage all of us to continue to just check on each other, whether you're working or not, or in the industry or not. And just remember that we're all in this together, and we're all sort of dealing with it in our own way. But it's always good to check in with each other.
Thank you, Sean. And Sabangle?
I would like to echo what everyone said. Absolutely. And not to repeat that, but I would also want to encourage businesses, folks who are curious, who want to understand more about what's happening and opportunities, to please go to the coronavirus.dc.gov website, as we are constantly updating it, as you have said before, Deputy Mayor, and the Mayor has as well, is that please check those websites. And obviously, if you need some assistance with any of the funds that we are offering, please email us, as we are standing ready to respond and assist as best as we can.
Thank you for that, Sabangle. And thank you to all our guests for joining us, all the folks who joined us watching on Channel 16, on our live streams, or on the phone line. We really appreciate you joining us. We hope this was helpful as you navigate this grant application. And like I said, the reason Mayor Bowser wanted to create the Bridge Fund and wanted to support employers was for the employees that they could support. We know that in the District of Columbia, if a worker is making minimum wage, $15 an hour, that they make about $600 a week. However, if that same employee loses their job and has to collect unemployment, that benefit is less than $300 a week. And so it makes a real difference in people's lives to keep people working. And we know that the hospitality industry does that. So we're excited to be joined by so many great entrepreneurs who joined us today, who talked about what the industry means to them and what their business means to them. And to echo what Tiffany said, nobody became an entrepreneur because it was the easiest way to make money. They knew that they could provide a good or service even better. And so we thank the entrepreneurs for the work that they do, the vibrancy that they add to the city. If you have questions, check out our website, coronavirus.dc.gov. All the information that we talked about today will be listed on the recovery page, and the Bridge Fund has a page onto itself. Also, next week we'll be opening up the grant application for the retail industry. So for those in retail, please check out the Bridge Fund site on Monday. And then on Tuesday, join us here at 4 p.m. For a similar conversation about the retail industry. Thank you all. Be safe, and we'll see you next week.